Gold Sounds Contest. It's Mazzy here. Thanks for returning, coming back, watching. These are going to be 5 records, more or less. Again, a few more. For Dom. Dom has a YouTube channel that I'll link below, and it's called Seeking a Thread. Seeking a Thread. Dom lives up in Ithaca, New York, I believe, or upstate New York, somewhere there. He works in record stores. I'm not sure full-time. He DJs. He's celebrating his 300th show on, not Celestial Radio, but I guess on the internet radio. And he's also, he's up to almost 600 subscribers. So I really enjoy him because he has a very soothing presentation, and he gets into everything from psychedelia. One of my favorite things he's into is primitive guitar, the John Fahey's, and he has turned me on to some great music. Obviously, I know John Fahey and Leo Kottke and Sandy Bull, but he turned me on to a great guitarist named Glenn Jones, a contemporary who had studied with John Fahey, and I ended up buying 4 of his records through Thrill Jockey out of Chicago, I believe. So great acoustic guitar, some banjo, some different interesting tunings. So highly recommended channel, and great music purveyor of really good stuff. But he wanted, for his contest, for this project of gold, music that means something to us, he wants us to show records that really sort of were important to us for whatever reason, personally, professionally, emotionally. And I've been doing a lot of this lately through my videos I did with, after my friend Coleman passed recently, and I did one for Steve Carlson, similar, of records that are signposts and hit home, and really just meant a lot. And this whole thing is actually been on my mind for a long time, and based on the comments I've received on a lot of your minds too, where how music is the golden thread that holds a lot of things together: friendship, relationships, loves, loss, families, good, bad, and ugly in some ways. My Memories of a Vinyl Junkie series are just that. But I decided in this time just to show some 45s and just tell brief stories, because he wants us not just to show the record and talk about the music, but why are we showing these? So first I'm showing this single, and this is obviously the Beatles, 1967 double A side, one of the perfect singles ever put out of Strawberry Fields and Penny Lane, my original copy on Capitol Records. You all know it, the great Capitol Swirl. My story about this, I was 12 years old, 12 and a half years old when this came out. And in my bedroom, I had a clock radio. It's a little Magnavox, AM, FM clock radio. But I listened to KYA at night. KYA was the first big top 30 station, top 40 station, top 30 actually. And then KFRC came along. But I remember the moment I first heard Strawberry Fields, and it was unlike anything I had ever heard. And it was late at night. You know, obviously I was supposed to go to sleep early, whatever, 12-and-a-half-year-old school night, I assume. And I heard this on the radio, Strawberry Fields, and I had my clock radio on, and it was amazing. And the weird thing about it, and I can still, it's like a sense memory thing, if you know what that's about. It was the first time in my life I thought of death, I've thought about personal death, I've thought about that I'm not going to live here and be here forever, that someday I'm going to die. And looking back on it, a 12-year-old thinking about that, what is that about? And why this song? After that, I recall hearing rumors that, oh, Strawberry Fields, the Beatles wrote it about a cemetery in Liverpool. Well, it turned out that wasn't true, but I did hear those stories. Turned out Strawberry Fields was a children's orphanage very close to, actually not too far from Penny Lane, and where all the Beatles kind of hung out, grew up, near the shelter in the middle of the roundabout. But that's for another story. So that's my Strawberry Fields story. This single means a lot to me. I think it's one of the most amazing records ever created, the ultimate studio song and recording. And if you've ever heard the bootlegs, I know in the Sgt. Pepper reissue celebration, they have a couple of works in progress, but there's a great bootleg out that literally has, I don't know, 15, 20 versions of it, from his acoustic guitar playing in Spain when he was filming the How I Won the War to the final rendition and everything in between. Amazing stuff. Next, I want to show this single, Patti Smith, and this is Gloria, but the B-side, My Generation's special song to me, because when my first roommate in college, we had an apartment, his name is Brooks, Jashit Brooks, if you've been following my channel, that's Brooks. We were roommates, we both went to San Francisco State in the BCA, Broadcast Communication Radio, actually, and I was, for a while, program director of that radio station, had a shift, as did Brooks, was on air. And we both worked at a record store a block from where we lived near Golden Gate Park. And this became our apartment theme song. This was the first Patti Smith record I ever got on Arista Records. My Generation, obviously, the Pete Townsend song, and Gloria, the Van Morrison song. Now, My Generation's a live cut. Talking about my generations, we don't need no fucking shit talking about my generation. And that became our apartment theme song. Every time one of us, something happened personally or professionally or at school or whatever, we'd get on and we'd grab this. It would sit next to the record player, to the turntable, and we'd blast it. And it got to be sort of a running joke for years. So the apartment theme song, Patti Smith's live rendition. Notice, my generation contains language that might be considered objectionable. That's why we loved it, probably. Okay. Now, with Brooks and I, in 76, 77, we started going to a lot of punk shows. I saw the Ramones in 76 on their first tour, at least the first West Coast, at the Savoy Tivoli. And I can't remember what year it was. It was 77. Brooks and I started going to the Mabuhay Gardens and seeing Dead Kennedys and a lot of bands. And we actually both saw the Sex Pistols in 1978. And that was the last show the Sex Pistols ever did. And it was terrible. They were terrible, but it was great seeing the Sex Pistols. And I just wanted to show these singles that I bought, because we worked in record stores, so I brought these home. I don't know if I actually bought them, but... and these are my Sex Pistols UK import collection. There's Anarchy in the UK. And I'm just showing these because they're not necessarily my favorite punk songs, but they were so unique and so different at the time, and so like just balls in your face, heads in your face, everything in your face. Just so an assault on the mind, an assault on our ears. Of course, any punk band too, but I recall these are amongst the first punk singles that I brought home. And these go from what's 77 and 78 mostly, I believe. God Save the Queen, the Sex Pistols, obviously, with back with You Know Wrong, 1977 on Virgin Records. This is, now I have two different versions of Pretty Vacant. I have the Virgin and the UK. I'm sorry, I have the American Warner Brothers version. And I have Sex Pistols, Pretty Vacant, the UK 1977 Virgin Records version. This is backed with No Fun, the Stooges song. And this is backed with Submission. So two different versions of the same A-side, Sex Pistols. And lastly, Holiday in the Sun, also from 1967. I just love these UK picture sleeves, and I just wanted to show them because it was a dramatic period, 76, 77, 78, that whole punk scene. And I was leaving behind, at least for a while, a lot of the folk rock, Eagles, singer-songwriter, Grateful Dead stuff, with some exceptions, for a while, and got fully entrenched in the punk scene. Okay, number 4 on this list, my first time I went to London, went to Europe, is 1978. And it was in March of 1978, I believe. I flew into London, and a friend who I knew from years earlier, picked me up at Heathrow, and we drove into London, and he turned the radio on after a little while, and this was the first song I heard, and I was blown away. This is Wuthering Heights by Kate Bush. It was at the top of the charts. I had never heard of Kate Bush. I had never heard her voice. This thing was so, the sound of this record is so unbelievable. Obviously her high-pitched voice, the repetitive thing at the end, Heathcliff, it's me, I'm Kathy, and Come Home Again. Just a fantastic artist. Obviously later, she became, to me, she has become one of the great artists of the 1980s and a true original. Obviously the Dreaming and the Running Up the Hill album, Hounds of Love, to me are her two perfect genius records, but I like her entire output. I bought the single the next day. I took the Underground downtown to Oxford Street, and I think it was an HMV store. I picked a copy of this up, and this is the original copy I got of Wuthering Heights. What a great, great single. Just love this single. And lastly, this is musical and professional. When I got back from that trip in 1978, I was trying to get a job at a record label because I had worked in retail, and I was looking for a record label. And it took me a few months or a little while, but then I got a job for ABC Records, and my job was a little bit of marketing, merchandising, promotion in store. And the bands that obviously ABC had at the time that were the key bands on the rock and roll side were Steely Dan, and Asia was the record that I worked around that time. It was after Asia came out. That came out 77, so that soon would be the Greatest Hits album with Here at the Western World, that extra track, that great double comp album. Tom Petty had released one album. His second album came out a few months before I worked it, and I worked this record. Now, what does working a record mean? So I got a job with them. In addition to going to retail stores like Tower and the record chains in the greater Bay Area, up to Sacramento, down to San Jose, I would bring posters and merchandising stuff in stores. Sometimes I'd have to take inventory of ABC product. We also had Jimmy Buffett was on the label. We had the entire ABC Impulse catalog, which I got a lot of. That was the period when ABC Impulse had the green label. So I got a lot of them. I should have kept them all, even though that's that mid-period. But I was really getting into jazz and Coltrane around that time. So I probably got 75 of those, and I got rid of them during my 95 purge. But this record was the second single from Tom Petty's second album, You're Gonna Get It, and it's Listen to Her Heart. And when you work a single, what you have to do, every Monday, I had to call a series of about 10 retailers in the Bay Area. There were a couple of Tower record stores, there were a couple of Rainbow Records, I think there was a Record Factory, a few others. And these are retailers that would be called by Billboard and I think it was Cashbox or one of the other ones, but mainly Billboard. And you try to convince these people, say, hey, we're still working on Listen to Your Heart. Can you give it in your top 5? It was in a way a little bit of like the payola thing. Obviously, I wasn't giving them drugs or sex or women or cars or dinners. We'd take them out to lunch when we go to the stores. But that was the way you'd get them to push a song up. And this was the first one. I think it only made the top 25 or 20, something like that. It never made the top 10. And of course, the following year in 79, MCA would buy ABC out. I lost my job, then I got it back again. And then of course, Damn the Torpedoes would be the big breakout for Tom Petty. But I remember calling these stores, and it was very intimidated. Like I wanted to say, hey, give this a number 1. Of course, I never said number 1. Give it a top 5 at least. Give it a top 3. And you try to get a commitment. You'd have this like graph of things. Now, that's how it worked. That's how the whole payola thing worked. Obviously, I was on the small level of that, but this is a good thing about learning the record business. Cut ahead to 1991. This system of people calling in hit singles and pushing them, basically, when you think about it, that doesn't really represent what's played or sales or anything. It's all bullshit. It was all bullshit to some extent. I mean, really, if a record didn't sell, wasn't going to be on the charts very long. But it was all by word of mouth and us pushing it. But in 1991, the record business adopted something called SoundScan. And the major retailers like Tower and others, it basically would be reality, records that really sold. So, you know, if Tower Records over a weekend, you know, sold a shitload of heavy metal or country records, those would be inputted, or any record, obviously. It was reality. SoundScan changed everything. Over those next few weeks, months, and years, all of a sudden, heavy metal was at the top of the charts. All of a sudden, country music was at the top of the regular charts, not just, you know, pushed to the country charts. So that's where, this is the time where Garth Brooks became this huge artist, because people in the hinterlands around the United States were buying country records, were buying metal records. And then, you know, the whole grunge thing was happening with Nirvana and all that around that time, or a little after that time. So it was a big change of pushing some record that maybe wasn't going to be a hit to what people actually wanted and buy. So the whole, you know, you should research that SoundScan. Anyway, it's a really interesting story and phenomena how the music industry changed in 1991 after that. So these are 5 records. These weren't as emotional to me as some earlier videos I've done on this subject, but I want to congratulate Dom, and I love his channel. There's a link below. Please go subscribe to it, because you know, he's obviously a genuine music lover, record lover, knows his shit, and love you. So Mazzy loves you, and enjoy the music.